Welcome back, one and all, to the Boston Celtics Newsfeed, powered by CLNS Media. I'm Mike Walsh, manager of the Celtics Newsfeed, and this is day 20 of our 2017-18 NBA preview. We're going day by day, releasing team previews leading up to opening night, October 17th in Cleveland. We're going to find out how each team in the league matches up with the Celtics. Before we get started today, I wanted to mention that the CLNS Media team has been all over training camp and preseason. Our YouTube page at youtube.com/CLNS Media is packed with content from the preseason games, practices, and training camp. The guys will also be at tonight's Shamrock Gala, so check for videos later today. That's youtube.com/CLNS Media. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a thing as we head into this season. Now, each of these preview podcasts will be accompanied by an outline blog post on our site, clnsradio.com. Today I'm going to be speaking with CLNS Media contributor Connor Peterson about his preview for the Portland Trail Blazers. The Blazers appear to have missed out repeatedly this summer, but are still one of the better up-and-coming teams in the West, and a key mid-season move from 2016-17 may help continue that upward trajectory. So without further ado, let's get into day 20 of the Boston Celtics Newsfeed's 2017-18 NBA season preview with Connor Peterson and the Portland Trail Blazers. Alright guys, one day after talking about where Carmelo Anthony left, we're going to be talking about one of the places he chose not to go. Day 20 of the Boston Celtics Newsfeed's 2017-18 NBA season preview. We're talking the Portland Trail Blazers today, the Pacific Northwest. Connor Peterson joining us, CLNS Media contributor. Connor, how are we doing this morning?
Doing very well, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to get into this team. They're kind of a lot of fun to watch. I'm just concerned with, as we'll get into in your preview on clnsradio.com, posted up there right now. You guys can go check it out. The rest of the West just got so much better over the offseason. I'm a little concerned that the Blazers might take a step back through almost no fault of their own. But before that, let's talk last year. Finished 500, as you're right. The 8th seed in the Western Conference just gets smoked by Golden State, as everyone else did in the league. But what happened last year to, I guess, give you a positive look on this coming season?
Well, I think really the only, or more or less one of the few positive things that the Trailblazers have to look forward to this year is Jusuf Nurkic. And obviously acquired mid-season, early February, as a replacement for Mason Plumlee, who just really didn't work out in his first couple years with Portland, or at least to the extent they wanted to. While Nurkic battled some injuries, but when he was healthy, they went 14-6 with him in the lineup. Unfortunately, he missed, I think, the last 7 games of the season, and then almost all the playoffs. So the bright side was that when he was in, he was good. It's just, can he stay healthy? He seems like he can be that big body. They wanted it to man the paint for them. The question is who goes alongside him.
Yeah, it was one of those change of sceneries, did him good kind of things. He gets out of Denver, where obviously he was kind of being buried, even though he is, just as young, almost just as talented as their big man down there. How does he, I guess, work off of their two, can you call them superstar? They're 2-star point guards.
Yeah.
2-star guards there, CJ and Dame.
Yeah, so, I mean, honestly, I think that, like you said, they're similar players, and their skill sets with Dame and McCollum, obviously. And so having Jusuf Nurkic there to kind of run off the pick and roll, I mean, he's a massive body, right at 7 feet, 250, 260. So he's not someone that'll really stretch the floor a whole lot, but he can grab a ton of rebounds. Obviously, like I said, worked really well in the pick and roll with them. So I think that's, kind of something that for whatever reason, Mason Plumlee really couldn't hit that on the head. The touches Nurkic is getting in Portland is just what, like you said, what he didn't get in Denver. And so I think that's boded really well for both the guards and him.
Yep, so they finished 500 last year, do get bounced in the first round, but a team that was, has been for a couple years now on the uprising. They, as you mentioned, made the second round 2 years ago. Let's dive into their offseason, and the first thing to talk about is that, unfortunately, they were not able to acquire Carmelo Anthony. He winds up toying with the idea of going to Portland. I think CJ and Lillard were kind of, saying, yeah, come here, we'll, form our own little mini super team. He winds up going to Oklahoma City. Is that a big blow to Portland?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, really, when you look at any NBA team that has any chance of making a finals run, you got to have a big three. And right now, I don't see Nurkic as that big three kind of guy. Like you said, it remains to be seen this season. But Carmelo Anthony would have been a really good fit on that team. And I'll be honest, when I first heard the rumors that Damian Lillard was talking about potentially recruiting Carmelo Anthony to the Trailblazers, I was skeptical. I was really skeptical that it would happen and that even Melo was interested. Turns out he was interested. He just really didn't want to move to the Pacific Northwest, which, the weather, I guess, not great. We know Melo's a city guy, chose to go to New York, and now Oklahoma City kind of contradicts that. But he wanted to go to a team where he really felt that, they had a really strong chance to win. I think that they would have had, he would have had a good chance in Portland if they were able to keep those four guys, Dame, McCollum, Melo, Nurkic, and you got Al-Farouq Aminu and guys like that. So I think it would have been really, really interesting to see, and obviously it elevates them a level above and probably gets them in contention with the top 4 teams, top 5 teams in the West right now.
I mean, most of their offseason winds up being kind of unfortunate circumstances. They do miss out on Melo. They kind of miss out on Paul Millsap, Blake Griffin, obviously Gordon Hayward in Boston now. Big names change places. It's just nobody wound up going to an up-and-coming team in Portland. So they turn their directions to the draft, and they come out of it with the 2 big men. You talk about in your preview, they're trying to find a guy to match opposite Nurkic in the backcourt. So they trade up for Zach Collins out of Gonzaga, a freshman out of Gonzaga, and then they wind up grabbing Caleb Swanigan, 2 guys who have developed somewhat of a cult following, it appears, at least through Summer League, and now they're both playing decently well in preseason. No glaring errors, anyway, that I've seen. So your take on Collins and Swanigan, if you have one.
Zach Collins, I actually thought when the Trailblazers made that deal, it made sense for both teams because the Trailblazers weren't looking to spread themselves thin and just throw a bunch of darts at the draft board. They wanted one guy that they really thought could work well with them, a skilled big man, and obviously very young and still needs a lot of time to develop. He's not hitting off in the preseason the way they really hoped, but just the way Dragan Bender needs some time to develop in Phoenix, I think we'll find that Zach Collins needs some time in Portland. He is a strong three-point shooter. He shot almost 50% from three-point range in his year at Gonzaga. He didn't play a ton of minutes, but he was able to, excel in rebounding as well during that time. He can shoot. He can definitely, play around defensively at the position as well at 7 feet. So I think, he'll be a really strong asset potentially down the road. I don't know how much he really gets used this year, but, generally I think they have some high hopes for him. Obviously, wouldn't have given up a couple draft picks if they didn't feel good about him. Swanigan is a little bit of a different case because he spent an extra year in college, and he is just a massive body on the court. As I said, 6'9", I think he's like 260, so him next to Nurkic is actually, I think physically would be the biggest front court in the NBA, and so that would be something that would really fascinate me to watch. Just like Collins, he actually can shoot as well, and so he finished in the top 3 in the Player of the Year, the Naismith Player of the Year last year in college. Obviously losing out to Frank Mason at the end, but he had a phenomenal season. I think I don't know if it was every single game, but I think he had a double-double with points and rebounds in nearly every game last year. He's an absolute monster on the boards, and he can step out and shoot. I think he was well above 40% as well. And you obviously hope that extends to NBA range, but those are 2 guys with kind of similar skill sets, but also little variance there too. But definitely high hopes for both of them.
The Newsfeed preview series is being sponsored by Greats, makers of the all-time greats, classic, stylish, and comfortable sneakers sold at a great price. Now, Greats is Brooklyn's first sneaker company, and they have this wide selection of both men's and women's shoes. They're versatile and suitable for really any occasion. They have tons of different colors and materials to choose from. Their best sellers include the all-leather Royale lace-ups and the Worcester slip-ons. I personally have a pair of the Royales, and I've been super impressed with how they've held up, how comfortable they are, and just how downright fly they look. I have the white-on-white version, so I highly recommend checking that style out. You can go to greats.com, see that and all their other styles. And we've got a special offer for our audience. You can save 15% on your first order with the offer code Celtics Roundtable. Go to greats.com, that's GREATS.com, and be sure to enter Celtics Roundtable to save 15% at checkout. Also, Greats believes so much in their shoes that they're going to offer you a no-risk return and exchange policy to guarantee that you get the right fit and style that you love. That's Greats.com. Use the code Celtics Roundtable. Save 15%. All right, so training camp questions. I figure the biggest one is just going to be Nurkic, his health and his, chemistry with those 2 guards that we talked about earlier. Is that the biggest thing for you entering training camp for this team?
Yeah, I mean, I think more or less it really is because he's obviously the most impactful player on the team after the two guards. I think there's less question, I think, about chemistry right now because he's had more or less a quarter to a third of the season. Obviously, didn't play as much as they had hoped after they acquired him. But they were able to get some time together, and I think at the very least it was a good trial run for this season, getting him I think 20 games or 21 games with the team. So that is a question. But for me, the bottom line is they didn't make any moves, and I did talk about this in my article quite a bit. But even in addition to Collins and Swanigan, they have an array of young big men that they're just kind of hoping one of them will take off and end up playing really well next to Nurkic. Because, as I mentioned, Al-Farouq Aminu really kind of has that 3 spot locked down, whether he plays 3 or the 4. And then they have Mo Harkless, and they have Noah Vonleh. The quick shout out to, he's actually from my hometown, Haverhill, Mass. So, he's drafted 9th overall a couple years ago, and they were really hoping that he'd develop a little more than he has. So far, he's only been a rebounder, but he did start pretty much all the games for them at the 4 last year. It kind of remains to be seen if he's going to make that next step. If he's able to, I think that would be huge because he started to kind of come alive a little bit. He had a 19 rebound game last year, and that was obviously really exciting for them because they think they're seeing what they hoped they had drafted or traded for a couple years ago. But I think the combination of who's going to play in the front court and more likely who's going to play next to Nurkic, those are my biggest questions entering training camp.
I'm going to save the next move they make towards the end because I think that'll tie in with your sort of season prediction for them. Let's dive into these. So they'll play the Celtics twice this season. Sunday, February 4th in Boston at TD Garden. So if you're looking to check out the Portland Trailblazers, do that game. And then Friday, March 23rd at Portland. So a long time to go before these two teams do see each other. But when that does come about, say the teams look like they do right now, what do you see happening in those matchups?
Well, I think that kind of ties into what the Blazers are going to have from their 4 spot this year too, because right now the Celtics obviously are a team that don't rebound as well as a team of that caliber really should. And so I think that's going to be probably the biggest factor playing Portland because obviously the very strong guards, you can do your best to slow them down, but one of them is going to most likely go off, even with our defenders there. Obviously losing Avery Bradley's tough, but Jaylen Brown, you hope his defense can come through with Marcus Smart, and they can kind of put a stop to that duo. But to me, the question really is who controls the boards, because last year they were actually very similar. The two teams, I think it was like almost a 50-50 split on rebounds for the game, of both games, I think. Granted, it's kind of tough to make that comparison because the Celtics only have 4 remaining players from that roster, and Nurkic wasn't even on the team at the time for Portland. I think that the Trailblazers are probably one of the few teams that the Celtics maybe don't have an advantage on the boards with, but at least are kind of on par. And so given that that's our biggest weakness, I think that it bodes very well for the Celtics. I don't think that Nurkic can really handle Horford, Aaron Baines, Marcus Morris, that kind of combination of bigs, as well as probably someone with a little more help on another team could do. You look at the better rim protectors in the league that have at least a guy next to them that can do something. So I think that's probably a big thing to watch. And I think Marcus Morris and Aaron Baines will really turn out to be crucial figures for the Celtics this year. For that reason alone, they add that level of toughness and size. I kind of getting excited thinking about Aaron Baines banging with Nurkic in the paint. So that should be definitely fun to watch.
Awesome. Let's see, trending wise, Portland has been, on the up and up. They've been, getting better each year, it seemed. But with how the Western Conference went, they're maybe leveling off a little bit. Final record standings prediction from you, 43-39, 7th in the Western Conference. So you do have them sort of sneaking in, or at least, securely grabbing a playoff spot next year. So I'm asking whether they go up or down. Is that dependent on, a possible move that they would make? So if this team does wind up finding itself a handful of games out of a playoff spot, do they consider moving one of those guards, or is that just something they would have no inclination to do?
Well, there's kind of 2 possibilities that give the Trailblazers a chance to really make a move this season, and we haven't really heard a whole lot from the general manager Neil Olshey about whether he's willing to blow it up. As we've heard from the Pelicans, if their season isn't going too great, they're going to look to move Boogie and possibly Anthony Davis. We haven't heard that from as to what they want to do with Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, mostly probably because they both have, I think, at least 4 years on their contracts, so it's a little bit of a sketchy situation for them. But the two possibilities would be, their season kind of looks like another mediocre push to the 8 seed, and they decide to want to make a move. My guess would be more likely McCollum than Lillard. And they try to, maybe grab some young assets and rebuild a little bit. Not a full rebuild, obviously, but, they kind of try to get something going. Potentially they could make a swap for, DeMarcus Cousins type of player, if the Pelican season isn't going too great. So I can definitely see that level when they start to see the same things happening for the third, fourth year in a row. They really can't get past that first round. So that's one possibility. The other one for me, and I know this sounds a little bit crazy, but there's kind of been talk around the league about, where Damian Lillard's path is on, as a player. And so you say, are they superstars? Are they just kind of stars? They're obviously all-star caliber kind of guys, but, when do who's on that next level? Where do you place them as far as tier goes? Both so young still. I think Damian's 27, I want to say, and McCollum's just a year or two younger. I think they may be both the same age, but I can definitely see a possibility of Damian Lillard taking that kind of next level jump that we saw from James Harden and Russell Westbrook last year. Not saying for sure that's a probability, but I definitely think that he's increased his scoring total in each of his first 5 seasons. He averaged 27 points a game last year. If he's anything like Harden or Westbrook, maybe they move McCollum and all of a sudden we see Lillard take that 30-point per game jump. Obviously, we know he's capable of hitting clutch shots and performing really well late in games, late in the season, into the postseason. So a lot of potential for Damian Lillard and a lot to be excited about if you're a Trailblazers fan in that sense. It just comes down to what kind of moves, how do you build around him to make this team a successful postseason team? And like you said, such a brutal Western Conference.
All right, so you have them finishing somewhere in the 7 to 10 range, but you have them at 7, so we'll lock you in there. Connor Peterson, CLNS Media contributor at @CPeterson_15. That's at @CPeterson_15 on Twitter. Connor, any last second thoughts on Portland and the Celtics this season?
Well, we at the end of the day we made our move for Kyrie and Hayward, and the Trailblazers didn't. I think that'll be pretty obvious when you see those two teams that played such close games last year start to be not so close, and for sure in the Celtics' favor. So go C's. Hopefully they can come through and make me look good.
Thanks everybody for tuning into day 20 of the Boston Celtics Newsfeed's 2017-18 NBA preview. Again, if you want to get more analysis, you can go to our clnsradio.com site and view any of our previous episodes at youtube.com/CLNS Media. Follow CLNS on Twitter at CLNS Media and myself at CLNS_Walsh. Be sure to subscribe to the Celtics Newsfeed, rate and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, and of course, the CLNS Media Network's mobile podcast app. Until next time, this is Newsfeed Manager Mike Walsh, signing off.